Tonight with a live look from Capitol Hill, where protesters have created a so-called autonomous zone just days after Seattle police boarded up and abandoned the East Precinct.
The protesters insist everything is peaceful, but police say they are hearing about business owners facing extortion and intimidation. KOMO's Matt Markovich begins our team coverage. And Matt, have you seen what police are talking about there?
We haven't. We've been basically here during the day, but we have not seen what happens here at night. Also, this is one of the barricades that surrounds on the zone. It's made up of some of the police barricades that have been surrounding the East Precinct, and this is the East Precinct intersection at 12th and Pine right down there. And you can see about several hundred people are having speeches and talking about what's been going on for the past 12 days. We have not seen police anywhere, but we have seen some unusual things. That's Seattle Fire Chief Harold Scoggins, alone, trying to secure the garage entrance to the East Precinct. Don't know if there's been looting, but it's been abandoned by police. There are no officers that can be seen. I just find it unusual that the fire chief is doing this by himself.
Well, we got a team. We're working through this, and there's some trust built, and I don't want to compromise the trust.
It's a dance of trust now being played out in a 6-block area surrounding the empty precinct, renamed the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
Like, you look around, it's peaceful. Everyone's chill.
Police say they're getting reports of armed people manning the checkpoints.
And while Washington is an open carry state, there is no legal right for those arms to be used to intimidate community members.
Operating a citizen checkpoint on a city street, says the SPD, is illegal.
We have heard anecdotally reports of citizens and businesses being asked to pay a fee to operate within this area. This is the crime of extortion.
But a protest co-leader says not so.
So yeah, definitely no extortion. No, definitely not a thing. We've invited people to come in.
We did not see any extortion or intimidation or armed people, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. Police say they want to negotiate with protest leaders to return officers to the precinct, but both police and protesters admit there are no leaders.
Everyone's stepping up and being a leader, and everyone taking initiative and not being complacent and watching out for each other.
But what's happening on Capitol Hill is having an effect citywide.
Right now, we are on priority calls only, which means that people citywide that need a police response are not receiving it. And that to us is just not acceptable.
There are hundreds of demonstrators here for what appears to be a teach-in, and many of these demonstrators tell me they're not going anywhere until changes are made.
This is the people's community right here.
All around the Seattle Police East Precinct, spray-painted signs that demonstrators have taken over. Seattle People Department, the property of the people, Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
It's not nothing aggressive or violent or nothing like that. We didn't come out here for any of that. All we wanted was what was equal and what was right.
Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best reopened Pine Street to the public Monday and had expected protesters to march through, but instead they stayed and have camped out for the past 2 nights. Protesters tell us they want a number of changes to defund SPD as part of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Lives taken by police matter. All lives matters. Black Lives Matters, that's what those faces on the walls. Black lives killed by the police.
Some businesses and residents tell me off camera they're worried about the potential of an uprising without police around, but that hasn't happened.
A lot of mixed emotions, honestly, that's going on right now. Some people are happy with it, some people aren't.
Vivian Hua is with Northwest Film Forum, just doors away from the Seattle Police Department.
The community really seemed to be happy that they were in a space without kind of antagonistic police presence or exchanges.
It's a long time coming.
Christopher Dara lives nearby. He says the entire experience is one worth learning from.
I was up here last night, and there was people having teach-ins and talks, political discussions.
Seattle Public Schools has partnered with the Seattle Police Department to bring members of law enforcement into classrooms. But in recent days, the district has faced pressure to move officers out of schools. KOMO's Kara Kosnich is live in West Seattle with more.
There are parents, students, and staff who are outraged by this decision. I was just devastated.
That was the reaction of veteran middle school teacher Leticia Clausen when she learned her beloved school emphasis officer would not be returning to her classroom.
I understand, the both sides of the coin, but then we're wiping even, the amazing people like him who do an amazing job. We're not considering considering them to remain in the school.
And that's left teachers and parents asking why.
I think it's a knee-jerk reaction.
Superintendent Denise Juneau made the decision to suspend the district's partnership with the Seattle Police Department for 1 year. That means 1 school resource officer and 4 emphasis officers will no longer be working on campus.
So until we can ensure that they're in alignment with us, they will not be in our schools except in emergencies.
4 middle schools and 1 high school will lose their officers.
Not only did it disappoint me, I felt that I was going to disappoint many other students that looked up to him.
Well, school emphasis officers are in uniform and armed. They do not provide enforcement at schools. They focus on violence prevention, gang resistance, truancy, and building relationships with kids. And in Mrs. Clausen's classroom, made a difference that's left a lasting impression on many students.
I think the key component is making a great team with the officers that are placed in our schools.
Ongoing protests across the U.S. are making it challenging for disease modelers to predict the spread of coronavirus. KOMO's Abby Oconee spoke to local experts on how they are considering the impact these demonstrations could have on COVID-19 cases. And Abby, you're joining us to explain.
UW's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation is releasing new projections of COVID cases tomorrow. One scientist tells me while models can take into account people's movement, also called mobility, it's difficult determining whether that movement stems specifically from protests versus other activities.
All what we know is we see a spike in mobility in Seattle, and we don't know if it's demonstrators only or something else is going on in Seattle.
Another scientist from Fred Hutch says the latest models are not just considering the protests, but all of the activity from the slow opening of the economy.
How do these protests and the gradual reopening of the country impact the accuracy of COVID projections?
It's possible that the models will be accurate over the short term, but it really will be difficult to separate out the reasons, and that will impact the long term.
While these protests present a threat for spreading COVID-19, many scientists say that this movement is important, saying that racism is a public health issue.
People of color have a lower life expectancy. When you look at diseases, they have much more diseases. They have less access to medical care. They have less access to quality medical care.
King County Public Health today in a meeting also discussed saying racism is a public health crisis, and their team of experts discussing how data shows that compared to white people, people of color are more likely to suffer from cardiovascular diseases, other issues, and are less likely to live longer, healthier lives. They say they are trying to engage the community to listen and address these issues.